All right, all right. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to week 3 of Pursuit for Purpose. We're here. We made it. I'm extremely thankful for those of you who've gotten on the call, and to those of you who will listen at another time. And the weird thing is, honestly, I'm also thankful and grateful for those that the mission hasn't touched yet. We're all on our own journey and we're all on our own time. And if it makes an impact today, if it makes an impact tomorrow, if it makes an impact 6 months from now for somebody listening to a video today, man, that's everything. So for the people that are here that have not been in the previous Zoom meetings, which a lot of you have, I'll give you a brief overview of what we're doing here. Pursuit for Purpose has come to life with you in mind. We're trying to help feed you the simple, powerful principles, pillars, disciplines, and perspectives that will assist you in making the best decisions that lead you towards molding yourself into the human you want to be. There have been roadmaps that have been laid before us in many different fashions, and we'll learn from those who have prospered and succeeded using these same principles. Maybe this is your right time to start working on yourself a little bit more than you have in the past. So this week, we're going to build upon last week's meeting of discipline and talk about accountability. Accountability is simply defined as an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility or to account for one's actions. For me, that simple definition expanded is the things we choose to say we will do, we will do. And if we don't, we must take ownership and awareness of our shortcomings and make the changes necessary to match the values that we claimed into the world. Accountability is hard, no way around it. Many times, from a personal experience, it's easier to not be accountable to yourself, but it's much harder not to follow through with the things you claim you will do when you're held accountable for your actions to others you are working on the things with. We've all heard it before. What do you do when no one is looking? That's true accountability. We have a tendency to self-protect when it comes to our shortcomings. We can make excuses as to who or what prevented us from accomplishing a task, but the people and groups that take full responsibility move forward stronger, together, and learn from their mistakes instead of letting them hold us back. Accountability is the glue that can keep a system together through the different challenges we all will face, but hold a common goal together that brings us back to focus, intention, and direction. We stress this now as a means, again, to use our sport choice as an opportunity to gain the skills needed to translate to the most important areas and times of our life that will be present long after our sport is gone from our daily lives. With a skill, yes, skill, learned such as accountability, you possess the servant leader capabilities that will show not only yourself, but any group you are in that you'll fight to accomplish the goals that you have set out together. And actually listening to a podcast that our guest was on, he shared something profound from a great mind in baseball and a personal mentor of his, Augie Garrido, about the sport of baseball. And I'll paraphrase this, but how it's always defined as a sport of failure. But he doesn't like that, because if you take back the power of language and start treating it as a sport of opportunity instead, we can learn from the actions and that not go our way and use it as a chance to grow. This is now the perfect time to introduce this week's guest, and we're very, very, very lucky to have this mind with us this week, as I believe, honestly, he's on the precipice of something great within the sport and also in mental training. He's got a wealth of knowledge and experience in this game. He's also a member of the 1995 NAIA National Champion Bellevue University team. Their team actually just recently got enshrined in the Hall of Fame out there, and has been fortunate enough to have some fantastic mentors that have guided him along the way, such as the previously mentioned Augie Garrido, Doug Williams, Mike Evans, and more. He currently serves as the Director of Player Development for Division I University of San Francisco. And please welcome me and welcoming Craig Gianinno. Craig, thanks for joining us, man.
Ooh, Kirk, what an introduction. We're talking about accountability. I don't know that I need to talk about accountability after that opening. You laid it out for us pretty clear, brother.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate what you stand for and the mission and what the direction you're going. And I appreciate all of you guys that are taking time out of your evening to come jump on a call and just have a conversation. I'm no polished speaker by any stretch. I just I hope I can give you some things that you might pick up, or if anything else, I hope it validates what you already do, whether you're a coach or a player. But I know the topic is accountability. And I think Kirk, you touched on it. Am I supposed to get into talking about it right now?
Yeah, no, please go right into head.
Oh,
Anything
okay.
that you got on the heart, let it out.
Yeah. So I think it's the one. Well, it's one of many, but I think it's the probably the biggest skill separator, just in life. Whether whether you're playing baseball or you're just trying to be the best version of yourself as a person, it's a valuable skill separator. And I think when I think of accountability, I think of, and you said it earlier, um, do you do what you say you're going to do? Do the actions match what your mouth says? And I think it has to do with a player accepting total responsibility for both personal and professional behaviors and performances, because we're always performing, right? Like Kirk, your opening, that was a performance, right? I mean, you're being yourself, but that's a performance. I'm sitting here talking to, and I'm talking with you. I really don't want to talk at you, because this is a conversation for all of us to have together, and understand that we're all trying to grow and develop as human beings, and we're trying to help our players go out there and perform with what I believe are three ultimate elements. Go out there and perform with confidence, go out there, perform with some aggressiveness, and go out there and perform with some relaxation. And if we can bottle that up, if I said I could bottle all that up for you guys, and I say, hey man, I'm gonna give it to you for free, would you guys take it? Would you take the confidence? Would you take the aggressiveness? Would you take the relaxation? Give me a head nod if you're with me on that. And if you disagree, disagree. Like, this is just what I believe. I don't have any scientific data to back any of it other than experience being around really, really good men and really, really good players. Been really lucky. So I think that it's about the actions, right? It's about, I think we're in a generation where everybody likes to tell us what they can do, right? Back in the day, like, they would tell us, but then they'd go do it. And if they didn't do it, there'd be a fist fight, right? Well, I don't know if you guys are old enough on the call for this, but now it's to a point where, like, man, I don't need to listen to what you're gonna say. I just need you to do. I need the actions to match. And so when I think of accountability, I think of ego as well. I think of, why is it so hard sometimes for players, for people, for human beings to take responsibility for their actions? And I think that before you can be accountable, you have to really take two steps back. You have to learn how to become self-aware of yourself. And once you become self-aware, then you need to learn how to become self-responsible for yourself. And then that leads into this accountability piece, right? Because I think that, for the players on the call, and I'll speak to the players as a coach, one of the greatest lessons that we try to help young players and all players with is, how fast can they learn to lead themselves? How fast can they take ownership of all their responsibilities, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in their relationships, whether it's on the field, and really, really take ownership of that. And so I break it down for our players sort of like in a process that's tiered in 3 levels. And it's nothing new. Like, everything I'm going to talk about tonight, it's nothing that I invented. Like, I'm not smart enough. I just have taken things that I believe in and that I align with, and I try to sort of fit them to what creates my process in trying to help teach and mentor and just guide people. And so when you talk about Ken Revisa, the late Ken Revisa, who was an icon in the mental game, he broke down the levels of learning in 3 stages. He broke it down in know it, do it, and own it. And I think a lot of people in general, whether you're an athlete or you're just going to school, get stuck in the know it and do it stage. And really what we want you to own your process. We want you to own everything that you do and every responsibility that you have. And so ways that I teach that is that, and I would just say, go online, and Brian Kite is a great follow on Twitter, and he breaks it down in very simple forms. he just, and I learned this from Mike Evans, and you talked about Mike Evans. He was my head coach at Bellevue University, and his big thing was like, we will not make excuses. Like it was like ingrained into us, like zero excuse making. And so I take it a step further to right now, we talk about no BCDs, right? I didn't say CBDs. Like, I'm not trying to talk about drugs on here. I'm not talking, he says, no blaming, no complaining, and no defensiveness. So can you go through your day without blaming somebody, without complaining about something, and without being defensive? And you get, the players that come in, and I'm sure you've all experienced a coach trying to teach, and a moment happens and a situation happens, and it's not a real comfortable situation for the player, and players, that are on the call, maybe think about yourself in this situation, and it's really uncomfortable because the performance outcome wasn't in your favor, and we're trying to teach you, and you want like, but coach, the universal, but coach, and there's sort of this palms up reaction, right? And it's like, no, like we just need, this is a learning experience here. Let's take the time to step back and try to actively listen and engage, take the message from the coach and how he's trying to help you get better, and then learn from it and move on. And I think that when we're not accountable, the biggest disadvantages of that is that we actually prolong the learning process, and we actually it actually takes away from our development. And so I think the players that I've experienced, and I've been lucky enough to coach really good players, and I tell you, I'll be the first one to tell you, like, I've been around really good players. So I had just a couple days ago, the 10th pick overall in the draft in 2019. He played for me in high school, Hunter Bishop. He's in the Arizona Fall League. He just finished up, played in the All-Star game, and I was talking to him. And I said, hey, man, what's the biggest lesson you've learned since you've been in pro ball and you have all these expectations on you? And he simply just said, like, I just started to stop making excuses and started to take accountability for me and everything that I do. And what I've realized when I did that is that I was able to move on to the next thing quicker and learn and grow. And it's starting to become a process for him. But he's 23 years old and he's still trying to figure it out, right? I'm 50 years old. I'm still trying to figure it out. So I think like, if we can teach our players that to eliminate the blaming, the complaining, the excuse making, and understand that, like, we're just all trying to get better, coach or player. We're just all trying to learn and get better. So I can't just tell you that, right? I can't just give you like, hey, we're just gonna not complain, not make excuses, and not become defensive. Then I got to give you something, right? I got to give you a solution. And I think that's the next piece of accountability is, how quickly can your players and can you guys on the call, like, think about yourself, like, do you get stuck in the problem, or are you a solution seller? Do you find ways to problem solve and solve the problem, or do you just get stuck there and then it's like, what do I do? And I think that a great strategy around that is when you want to go down that rabbit hole of making an excuse for yourself, what if you just said to yourself, doesn't matter, get better. Like, just, it doesn't feel good right now. Like, I get it. It's uncomfortable, but welcome to life. It's really uncomfortable. Welcome to this really difficult game. It sucks. It doesn't care about you. It has no feelings, Austin. It does not care about you, Austin. It does not care about you, brother. It doesn't. And it's going to humble you in many different ways, right? And so the more respect we give it, it might, like, eventually, like, on certain days be nice to you. But so the question becomes, if I were to ask you to self-reflect, and I think that the greatest players are the ones that are able to take complete ownership of their responsibilities, whether it's on the field, off the field, and hold themselves accountable first, because you can't hold anybody else accountable until you can hold yourself accountable. And so I think it's a great skill. And I think that it's a tough skill for people in general, because let's just talk in the baseball context. It's a tough skill because and I was talking to Kirk about this earlier today. It's a mental skill, fellas. Like, it's a mental skill. Like, if you can be great at a mental skill, become a black belt in accountability for yourself. But it takes work, it takes effort, it takes the same amount of time you put into the offensive side of the game, it takes the same amount of time you put into the defensive side of the game, it takes the same amount of time you put into the base running side of the game. But it's not sexy, it's not pretty, it takes effort, it takes time, it takes patience, it takes forgiveness. But it's a separator. So if it's a separator, why are we still making excuses? Why are we still complaining about the weather? Why are we still complaining about it's too cold? Why are we still complaining about, when I land on the mound, it feels uncomfortable? Like, you got to find a way to overcome. And I think the ones that are, so it leads me, so accountability leads to mental toughness, right? So I think the more that you find ways to not go down that and not allow yourself to make an excuse or complain about something, the more toughness and the more resilience you're developing in yourself as a person and as a player. And at the end of the day, like, for you guys on this call, like, when you go onto the field in competition, there's nothing more I want for you than to be able to use your mind as a weapon on the field. And that takes the skill of what was talked about last week, discipline, and we're talking about accountability this week. But I would just say, and you guys have been around it. You've seen it. You know exactly who you can trust, who you can't trust, who's going to follow through with what they say and who's not going to follow through with what they say. And so there's street cred that's gained and there's street cred that's lost, right? And so I would just say that that's my, sort of my long-winded sort of, response to accountability. And it's an elusive skill, but I think you guys know it, and you can see it and you can feel it when you know that someone's being accountable for themselves.
Craig, that was awesome. I mean, I probably got a half a page of nuggets already that I decided to write down. That, man, and then, guys, I'm telling you as well, you got to make sure to check out Craig's Twitter and make sure to check out his pin tweet that he's got up there. Great interview podcast that he had. That it just full of great stuff with two good minds talking about mental performance and training. So make sure to check that out for yourself as well. So I'm going to go through and ask Coach Craig a couple of questions.
Real quick though, Kirk, can I ask one question to the group?
Yep, please.
And I don't want them to answer this. I just want them, it'll close out the first part of our conversation, I guess. Just want them to, and because I try to ask it to myself every single day, and then I ask it to our players. But do you count on yourself? Number one, do you count on yourself every single day? Can others count on you? Can others count on you? And it's just a self-reflective process that I try to use for myself as just a person and a professional. And then I ask our players the same questions. But I also ask, are you reliable? Are you reliable? Can I trust you? Do your teammates trust you? Do the people in the organization trust you? And it's sort of it can be messy, and it can be uncomfortable, and that's okay. But I think it's a process for each individual to sit with. But I think it really helps teams when you go to the macro of the whole group and you're trying to achieve greatness. I think it's a great process that is that they start to understand when you ask those questions frequently, and it becomes a norm. And then they start wanting to be those dudes. Like, I want my teammates to trust me, but based on your behaviors and based on your actions, they tell a different story, right? So, so that's something I think it's been a valuable and effective strategy. The other piece with accountability, and I'll end on this, is that think we're really good. We're really, really good at negotiating with ourselves. I did it this morning. I woke up and I got that message last night, and then Kirk had texted me, and I was like, man, I got to go to the gym. And I'm like, I really don't want to go to the gym. And I was like negotiating in my mind, and I'm like, am I going to go? Am I not going to go? And I was like, you're making this harder than it has to be. And I'm like, I got to go. And I went and I acted on it. But we have these, like, we play this little tape in our head, right? We negotiate with ourselves. And I would just say, like, man, win those negotiations, 9 times out of 10. Every once in a while, you're going to lose one of them, right? But if you can win the inner, the internal negotiation that you have with yourself and your mind, because you made yourself a promise. I know you made yourself a promise the night before. Can you keep your promises to yourself?
That's awesome, Craig. And I appreciate you adding all of those last bits, because genuinely, as we talk about this topic, and we're going to be getting into where, guys, we want to hear from you, the both of you. We're going to want to hear from you after we get done asking Coach Craig a couple of questions. But here's where the honest truth falls. We're all unaccountable to ourselves at different times. This is not an area that any of us have ever even been close to perfect on where we think we're going. And heck, the most of us, Jason, myself, Craig, Coach Lowe, the guys with a little bit more life experience, man, we've probably failed and been unaccountable to ourselves way more than you guys as players would ever think is possible, because we were in your shoes at one point, being unaccountable towards our own actions. And some of you guys on the call know my own personal journey, and I was completely unaccountable towards myself, that I finally had to get accountable. And it wasn't until I actually started looking at myself and saying, hey, these are self-inflicted wounds. These are my problems that I created, not anything else that anybody else put on me. Just, what I put on myself. And I dug myself a deep hole, but it's been fun, filling that back up with cement and try to stand on even ground, and now trying to, continue moving forward. So I'm going to get into some questions for Coach here, and it'll be as long as it needs to be, but ultimately we'll end up getting into some more dialogue from you guys, because hey, this is where we get to have a chance to wear our heart on our sleeves a little bit, put it out there. What are we looking to do? What are the things that we know we need to create? Because that's where a lot of stuff comes into, and you'll hear Coach talk a little bit more about some things. But Coach, I'm going to go ahead and skip the first one of what does accountability mean to you, because you know what, you answered that great in your introduction for yourself, and just some great knowledge for these guys. Next one that I really want to ask is, how has accountability in your life helped you get to where you are, and how will it help you keep getting to where you want to go?
I think it's what I just said. I think that I have a vision for myself, and I'm a little late to the game, though, fellas. Like, you guys are so far ahead of me at your age than I was at mine, and I think there's a question down the road that I'll be able to, that it'll connect all the dots. But I think it goes back to this cliche quote, right? Like, if I can just master taking care of all of the things that I can control in my life, and really pride myself and take value in, the little things that I can control, and then things that are outside the lanes of my control, I know that I have a choice in how I want to respond or choose to respond. I think that's sort of my process. And sometimes I get derailed. I'm human, but I try to live by that daily, and I try to match the actions with what I say. And if I say I'm going to call you, I'm going to call you. And if I make a mistake and I'm late to calling you, I'm going to be like, and I'm sorry, like, I have no excuse. I just didn't get to it, or I screwed up. And so I think that's for me, that's pretty much it with that one. I mean, there's not much to it for me on that. Like, I'm a pretty simple guy. I'm not that smart. So I try to make all the complex things as simple as possible for me, because, like I said, I'm really not that smart. I just have a lot of experience because I've been around a lot of teams and players. And I've been lucky because selfishly, I need you guys. Like, the guys that are on this call, selfishly, I need the players that I get to see on a daily basis, because the fact of the matter is that they teach me more than I'll ever teach them. And that's I really believe that in my heart, like in the depths of my heart. Because, and we'll get into this in a little bit, but it's just like, man, these dudes, you guys on this call, you have such brilliant minds. And like, how as coaches are we not tapping into how the mind works, how the mind ticks, what motivates you, what inspires you? And when we're working in team environments, like, man, we got to hear from you. We got to hear what you want, what can make it a great experience for you, whether it's for 1 year, 4 years. And I think this idea of players driving it and it becoming a player driven environment, oh man, that's where some magic can happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. And you're stealing something that I usually say for myself as well, too, is that truthfully, at the end of all of this, I genuinely believe that, I need this group more than this group needs me. And and I feel that. And it's helped me. I can tell you guys just in a short amount of time, I'm doing things that I've always told myself I was going to do, but I've now welcomely put some weight on my shoulders that says, hey, do it. And I have the same negotiations that Coach Craig's talking about with myself. And I just know, I made a challenge to some of these guys jokingly about a month and a half ago when it came down to weight room, that I was like, hey, I'm going to come back looking better than you. And that should not happen. It really, your coach shouldn't be outworking you in the weight room for what it's worth. And that, hey, if I achieve it, whatever, who cares? But I needed it for myself. And it's just a matter of pushing it and doing it. It's brought me back to life personally, of just, feeling that energy and love for myself that I can give to others, to hopefully try to let them know, hey, I say this with love as well too. If I was teammates with anybody right now, you wouldn't have a chance, because I'm so driven and determined that for what I'm working on and what I'm doing every day at practice right now. I wish I was out there with those guys on the field as I'm training and pushing myself. It's a fun aspect right now to know, for no other reason other than to just get better, feel better about where things are going. But with the next question, Coach, can you tell us a little bit about the culture you're helping build at the University of San Francisco and how accountability actually plays into that culture?
Yeah, I mean, it's I'll say this to everyone on the call, like, if you're ever interested in information, just hit me up on Twitter, DM, whatever. I mean, I think my contact's out there, but I can put my cell phone in the chat. I'm 24/7. Doesn't matter. Like, you call, it doesn't matter. I don't sleep much. And I'd love to hear from you. But yeah, I started it back in high school. Like, I started this idea of, I saw how stressed out the players were that I was coaching. I had really talented players. If anybody's heard me talk in the past, I coached at Sarah High School, San Mateo, California. NorCal was where Barry Bonds and Tom Brady went, to name a few. Lynn Swan, some pretty ridiculous athletes, right? So it's all boys Catholic school. So every kid that's born in that community, they think they're going to be the next Bonds and Brady. And so I got these guys, and they're talented, there's no doubt, but they grew up being the best of the best. And then they got to freshman year. They were pretty good because they were talented. They were more talented than most of the kids around them. I think it's JV year, sort of like whatever. And then by the time they got to the varsity level and all the dudes were as good or better than them, it got real for these dudes fast. So they never really had to experience this discomfort of like what it feels like to compete against somebody as good as you or better, but most importantly, better. And then the league is really tough. So I saw the stress, I saw the anxiety, I saw the expectation that, they knew going in, like they were trying to live up to the jerseys hanging above their heads, like Brady, Bonds, Jim Fregosi, Lynn Swan. And they're like, that's all they want to do. And so I started bringing teams into, I cut out of practice, physical practice on Mondays, and started a process inside of a chapel. And it was this idea where, hey, we need to get in there for the week, to start the week, and use the space to center ourselves, get our minds right, slow the week down, breathe a little bit, and have conversations about how we want to build our team, what matters to you. What mattered to me in the program when I was there was this idea of we act. I built the program. It was all based around work ethic, attitude, commitment to team. And that spelled out We Act. I didn't realize, like I said earlier, fellas, I'm a slow learner. I just knew that work ethic was a huge component to what I believed. The relentless and intentional, purposeful work mattered. The attitude piece of it was like, don't show up unless you're ready to give to somebody else and make somebody else better. Don't come here unless you're ready to inspire somebody to be great. Like, not good, not great, but maybe even legendary or iconic. And don't show up unless you're ready to commit to somebody other than yourself. And so I was sitting in church one day and I wrote the work ethic, attitude, commitment. I wrote it out. And I'm like, wait, that spells We Act. And I'm like, oh my God, that's sort of like, that can go different directions. And I got all fired up, right? Like, I got fired up. It was like this mantra. So like, I knew when the players left my program, or left the program that I inherited, and just hope to elevate and can sustain it and basically not screw it up. That no matter what, man, we were going to compete like crazy. But when they left the program, they left with some transferable skills that they could take for the rest of their lives. And that's what you guys all aspire to do. I know that. And I know the players on the call are working at that every day. But it was this idea of like, hey man, when you get into that job interview, man, nobody's going to outwork you. You're going to have this infectious attitude, and it's about everybody else but yourself. And like, it's okay to be selfish. That's part of it. But you need to understand, like, what can you give? Like, we want to get, but like, really, what can you give? And what does that feel like when you do that? So that's how I built the program at Sarah, because to be honest, I didn't know what the vision was. I had to sit down and like check myself philosophically, like, and then once I figured that out, then I started having these meetings with players, and I started allowing them to create and empowering them to create their own subculture. So that I wanted them to start to create their identity based on what mattered to them, based on their voice, based on their ideas, based on their thoughts. And then they created it. And then they came to me and said, hey, coach, I think this is what we're attaching ourselves to. And, whether it's trust, accountability, resilience, which spelled TAR for 1 year. And if you spell it backwards, it was RAT. And so they had this idea like, hey, this is our subculture to the culture that the program vision is. And so TAR means like, hey, we want it to be messy. We want to be in the 1-run games. We want to be facing the number 1 dude 4 times in a row, because that's what we're going to get, because that's where you guys play. That's the environment you're in. And we're going to love to do that. So TAR means like the glue. Like, if we say TAR from the dugout, that just means like we're going to come together that much more, and we're binded together. And then RAT became like this idea of like, hey, anytime we get with 2 strikes, we're going to be rats. And then they described all these characteristics of rats, how they're resilient, they don't give up, they don't quit, they find a way, they're problem solvers, they work together great as a team. And I guess they do. Do they? I don't know. Do rats work together great as a team? I don't know. Dude, I don't know. That could be debated. But anyways, I mean, it's stuff you guys haven't, you've all heard this stuff before. But so fortunately, I moved on from there to the University of San Francisco and built the same and really expanded the role. And so I get the players, I get the head coach there, has been there 24 years. He's a brilliant man. Gianinno, if you get a chance to listen to him speak at any time, please do. He's inspiring. He's a difference maker. But, he came, his recruiting coordinator came, Troy Nakamura, and saw one of these experiences where I had these meetings intentionally. And he's like, that's the game changer. Like, we need that. And so they, through conversation, when I moved over there, I started them 5 years ago. And it's been transformational for me. I think it's impacted the program. But really what it is it's an environment where once you know what you're playing for, and once you know there's a defined vision and there's a set of standards, and the players understand it, know it, live it, believe in it, they're inspired by it, and they value it, it becomes this idea of like, we're just trying to protect the culture. So we have these meetings every week with them. And at the end of the meetings, there's affirmations and constructive criticisms. And like, unless you've defined it and unless it's in stone, like you don't understand it unless it's like clearly defined. But now we're to a place where these dudes have been with me for 5 years. They know it. I just facilitate. I'm just sort of a fan watching because I'm there, but like they run it. It's player driven. And the end of the meetings, 4 players present every week on certain topics. And then at the end of the meetings, it's this opportunity for players to speak about the team, or, you know, hey man, Austin, man, I saw you get down there for early work and work on that 2-strike approach, brother. I stay with it, man. It's going to pay off. That's what I'm talking about. And then it's like, boom, bro hug, sit down. But then I also saw last week, we had a player come up, check one of our freshmen and be like, hey man, like the comments you made at the beach workout, 7 a.m., man, that's not what we're about. And we got to be better. That should not come out of your mouth. And so he said it, right. And then the kid got up because there's this like bro hug that's got to happen no matter what. And they bro hugged. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be a test of the culture right here. Does this freshman go back to his seat and sit down? Or does he continue walking up to the front of the room to address the group? And thankfully, he came up to the front of the room. He's like, fellas, like what I did today was unacceptable. I'm all in. I made a mistake. I know I've probably just fractured a little bit of the trust, but I'm going to work hard to earn that back because I love you and you're all my brothers. And my actions didn't align with what we've been building in this room for the last 14 weeks. So it was like, man, like, how can you hate on that kid, right? Like that's what the environment's for. And so they're able to stay ahead of like those little, you know, I mean, we've all been in dugouts where there's those little fractures. But I'll tell you this though, man, I've been doing it for a long time. It's a 24/7 operation, man. There's no days off. There's no minutes off. It's constant work. And as good as maybe I think it is, it still needs to be better.
That was awesome.
But I mean, it's pretty vague, but if you guys want information on how I design it, if any of you ever want to be a part of it and see it in action, you're more than welcome. Our recruits come in with their families now. It's uncensored, it's unsolicited, and it's like, man, it's just real. It's just it's 35 dudes just being real.
Right. And again, you know, the culture from the ground up, and those are wins as a group that don't get counted on any kind of statistical sheets. Those are wins as people that, you know, again, that moment probably forced that freshman to grow tenfold. And just like you said, he handled it the right way. And then whatever fractured trust there was, it was just bonded with a super glue that was probably, you know, stronger than Gorilla Glue. And it would probably, you know, keep a wig on my head for forever if I went to go with it for sure. But that's awesome. And leading into the next one, I feel like it actually, you know, can give your perspective a little bit more in an area that we'll all get a chance to talk about here if we choose. But, you know, can you share a little bit about a time in your life that, hey, your accountability was not the strongest?
Yeah. So this is a very easy one for me. So coming out of high school, I was, so I have hemophilia. It's a bleeding disorder. I have severe hemophilia. So I'm a bleeder. And so I played high school basketball and baseball, and it attacks your joints. And so I have a bad right ankle joint, and I played basketball and baseball and in high school. And I really had this passion to play baseball. And I was like, man, what am I going to do out of high school? And I belonged to this, like this boys club in the community I grew up, which was a small little Italian community in North Beach in San Francisco. And I went to this boys club. I grew up there. And a lot of money was left in a trust by a woman that loved the University of San Francisco, ironically. And she said, we want the money to go to Italian boys that were loyal to the Salesian Boys Club. And so the director of the boys club calls me in my senior year and says, hey, we got money. We'd like to give you this opportunity to go to University of San Francisco. I wasn't going to play baseball. I was done. My career was over, whatever. I wanted to play, but I was like, I'll just go to school. I had no idea what I was doing. I wasn't socially, emotionally mature enough. I should never have done it, but I did it. I had to take 2 classes in the summer. I'm talking a $70,000 education. And here I am going to this university, and I take these 2 summer classes. Right across the street from the school, the university, was an all-girls high school. And I met a girl, and as I'm going to school there, I'm actually starting to not go to class and meet up with this girl. And long story short, I completely screwed this opportunity up. It wasn't for baseball. It was a great education. And I had to then like, eventually after the semester, I'm like, okay, I got to go have a conversation with the director that gave me this opportunity, because I'm like failing miserably. And this is how dumb I was, fellas. This is how dumb I was. I did not realize that you had to actually drop classes. So I actually took F's in all those classes, never dropped them, which made it miserable for me later. But I'll never forget the day I walked into the director's office, and I had to own my mistakes and tell him, like, hey man, I screwed this opportunity up. This is what I've been doing. I haven't been holding up my end of the bargain, and I don't want, I don't know what else to say other than I'm really sorry, and I need to figure some things out in my life right now. And so that was a whole semester at USF that I screwed up because of distractions and noise and not being mature enough, not being, smart enough, not holding myself accountable enough, and royally screwed that up. Took the next semester off, and then that's when I went into junior college, and then eventually transferred into Bellevue in Nebraska, and then ended up coming back and starting my teaching and coaching career.
That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing some candidness about some shortcomings that you felt like you personally went through, and fun and beautiful in a crazy way that you get to circle back to a place that you felt like you failed yourself, and now you get an opportunity that much more to raise it up that much more, to try to help these kids not drive into that brick wall that you drove yourself into in that situation. So guys, kind of want to go ahead and open it up here into the community for ourselves, and really, it can be a Q&A. It can be hey, share something on your heart. If it's as much as, hey, I want to be able to go ahead and say this is what I want to do, and pair up with an accountability partner. One of the things last week that we did was kind of get some accountability partners for ourselves. We didn't necessarily do it from within the group, but we said, hey, choose somebody that you care about, that wants to see you do better, and tell them, hey, this is what I want to improve this week. I'm going to check in with you every day, and we're going to see where we ended up being. And personally, me and Alan have been trading, Alan Jager have been trading messages back and forth each week, this week for ourselves. And it's been awesome. Mine maybe to say a little bit easier because they're just a couple of actions that I wanted to do, working out, personally develop, reading a book, but hey, it's like I said, for the first time in a long time, I can say, hey, I've worked out 7 days in a row. I read 7 days in a row. I listened to personal development audio 7 days in a row, and you better believe I'm going after 8 tomorrow, so that's just, it's been fun. We're going to continue it. So I would suggest strongly get with somebody that you care about, even if it's somebody on your team that you have a tighter relationship right now. Start it between yourselves. Start that strength right here, right now, because that will grow. Somebody else will see you on the team as things continue to go and grow. And I know we're all away from our teams right now as well, too. So it's that much easier to not be accountable to yourself because there's not as many eyes on you. But this is the perfect time. This is the separating moment for baseball, where we really do get to see, when we come back for the spring, who put in the work and who completely took the time off. Sometimes your bodies need a rest, and that's fine, but you'll know, and only you'll know when that appropriate time is. But does anybody for themselves have either any questions for Coach Craig or anything that they'd like to share? I definitely want to hear from you guys for sure. This is about you.
Oh, let's go. I want to hear from you guys. Come on.
All right, we got Cade. Cade took off the mic.
I don't have any questions or anything. I just wanted to make a couple comments on stuff that you brought up. When you said doesn't matter, get better, absolutely love that. And also, I've seen before I first saw it was Lamar Jackson was doing like an interview or something. He wore a shirt that said, I don't care, work harder. And like that's within that mentality. I absolutely love that so much. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up was the video that Kirk assigned us, or not assigned, was part of the email that you kind of like do. We the video that I love the most was Charlie Johnson's TED Talk. Um, some of the things, the key takeaways I wrote down is the power of one day and creating and changing habits. So just like being accountable for one day at a time to create positive change in your life is just like one tiny day can become incrementally large over time. And that we've talked about this a bit already. Just having a like-minded group of people around you helps so much with that accountability aspect. Like the teammates, other coaches, just stuff like that. So those are just some things for this week's that I wanted to talk about. I've really enjoyed this week so far. I've enjoyed the guests and enjoyed the videos. Like it's just been a great week for this.
Awesome. I appreciate that, Kate, definitely. And I'll go ahead and I'll post up some the video links. There's just a couple of YouTube videos that actually this week weren't too long. They were more like 5-6 minute ones. But there's some good just tidbits. And that's just, again, like Kate's talking about, we're just trying to plant seeds as much as we can and watering the seeds that are going to give us the best returns on our investment. There's these different stories and I'm going to butcher it, but it's just pretty much there's two wolves, and which one lives, and the one that you feed. And it's either the discipline or the shortcoming, which one do you actually want to feed for yourself? And I strongly advise feeding the one that's got your best interest involved, and not the one that's got Craig, as we talked about, some instant gratification. We're trapped in that for sure. A little bit too much of instant gratification for ourselves these days. When in reality, man, many of these times when you do these things that you don't want to do, you do get instant gratification out of that actual action for yourself. It might not have instant results, but you accomplished something that you were supposed to do for yourself. And Austin, like I'm not trying to steal or jump or make anybody have to talk, but man, I kind of want to ask you a more of a personal question as somebody that had to, dude, you got thrown through the ringer, and you had to do a lot for yourself as a person just to get back to where you'd already worked so hard to get. So take me through, if you don't mind, in the group a little bit, your mental process through what you had to go through this summer. As you had ups, you had a lot of peaks and valleys. You got the opportunity to get to where you want to get and make an impact, but man, you had life try to tell you, I'm going to make you earn it.
Oh yeah. So this summer I was pretty much a free agent. I was in the transfer portal, found a forever home, I feel like, right now, and I was doing really good in the summer, made a bunch of relationships with a bunch of guys, and we were coming towards the end. And then I got very sick. I was hospitalized for 3-4 days. I had a bunch of different things going on. And I actually went from 190 pounds to 150 pounds. I was skin and bones after I just spent 4 or 5 months getting into what I thought was the best shape of my life. So when that hit, I didn't know what was actually going to happen. So I get here at App State and they're like, what happened? Like, why do you look like this? And I was like, look, I got sick. I was in the hospital, this, that, and other thing. So mentally for me, I go into the weight room and I can only squat 225 pounds, which for me, we have dudes that are benching that on a daily basis. And that's all I can do. And exhausted, frustrated, literally everything that would make me say, you know what, I'm just hang the cleats up. Like, I'm good. But we have a guy here, his name's Jacob. He's a psychiatrist guy, not really, but he's into it. And I sit down, talk to him for 3.5 hours one day, just about everything. And he told me that the relationship that you have with an outlet that you can find that's healthy will keep you from going down the wrong path, which for me was hanging it up, saying I'm good because something hit me that was unexpected. So I feel like that was the biggest part for me. And now I'm back, I'm healthy, I'm doing everything that I told him I would do. But I feel like that was probably one of the hardest times in my life. And if that is the hardest time, then I'm living a pretty solid life. So
All right. Longest home run in the fall at App State for sure. That's nice, man. I want to see some more of those during the season, man, for sure.
oh, absolutely will.
Austin, that's inspiring, man.
And anybody else got anything that they gotta wanna put on their sleeve right now? I'm not sure if I have to unmute you or anything like that, but Chris, feel free, please.
I just want to say, Austin, congrats, man. Thanks for sharing that and keep it up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I actually I have a question for Coach Giannino, if you don't mind.
Yeah, what you got, Austin?
Going back to you were talking about giving that example of the upperclassmen checking the freshmen. I feel like that goes back to the relationships that you set a foundation for your players, between not only you and the players, but the players themselves. If you don't mind elaborating on what kind of relationships you have with your players.
Yeah, well, I think it's not even about senior to freshman. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's equal opportunity. And I think that, I've been a part of like a hierarchy team and program before. And it's like, man, at the end of the day, we're all trying to, I think we're all trying to go the same direction, right? Like, we all want to try to get to the top of the mountain to get, top of the mountain. And I think that the teams that understand, like the teams with the older dudes that have been through it, that understand that if they can mentor these younger dudes in a way that is healthy, that's welcoming, that's inviting, that's like, we're going to expedite their process and their development. They're going to still go through their growing pains because they're young and they don't know what they don't know. But the hierarchy deal is a flawed model, like flawed. It's not sustainable. And so I think it's about, like, they say iron sharpens iron, right? I don't care if you're a freshman. I don't care if you're a senior. I had a kid that played for me the other night on a call. He's in AAA right now with the A's. He's a catcher, Colin Thoreau. He's 27 years old. And he was talking to a group of kids that I was doing a call with. And he just talked about it, spring training, like they have a dinner with the catchers, all the catchers in the A's organization. And he's just like, man, look, he tells them at dinner, he's like, listen, fellas, like, I hope you all hit 300 and I hope I hit 301. And it's just like this idea of, like, we're going to push each other, and we're going to love on each other, and we're going to help each other get better, and let the chips fall where they may. But that's what elevates all of us, and that's what helps all of us get better. And so this idea of, like, let's haze the freshmen, it's just such a immature, shallow approach philosophically. Like, what is that? Like, I'm not a fan. And so, I don't, if a freshman's got to say something to a senior, he should be able to say it. Like, obviously he has to earn the trust and he's got to develop the relationship. But I think once the relationships are formed and forged, and they're forged out of, like, the effort that the individuals put into each other, then once you have that relationship, I can be like, Austin, man, dude, get it together, brother. We need you, but right now something isn't right, and you haven't been giving your best effort, and we need you though. And it's just coming from a place of love, like, because you know how I feel about you, so I can make that withdrawal because I've made those deposits in previously, right? So I think that for me, and the I don't want to say, I guess it's the freedom, the trust, I guess, that our head coach has in me, because I've been a head coach. It's like, it's not about it's not about this like top down dictatorship. It's like we're all working along each other, beside each other, and we're all trying to get better. So it's horizontal. And when it needs to be top down, it needs to be top down, right? Like I get it. But for the most part, man, we do our best work when we're all working alongside each other. And like, man, I'm going to learn from you. You're going to learn from me. You know, you had a conversation with your guy at App State that gave you some insight that helped you get better and helped you see some things that probably helped your confidence and ultimately helped your belief in yourself. Like that's what it's about. Like that dude right there is someone that you'll be able to have in your life as long as you want that dude in your life for the rest of your life. So if I was to say to you, Austin, man, like, you know, when you were going through that period of time, and I said, hey man, on a scale of 1 to 5, assess your confidence level, 1 to 5, 1 being poor, 5 being elite. Assess your aggressiveness in attacking whatever task you are involved in, 1 to 5. What would that number be? And then assess your relaxation, your poise and composure in that, you know. And so it's just about self-reflection, and it's like we're all unfinished products. So if we can't like be real and like strip down the barriers and be like, hey man, I'm 50 years old, brother, and I have insecurities, fears, doubts, and like I was nervous to get on this call tonight. Like I was nervous because I care, and I was nervous because like maybe what if I say this and they don't like, but like I got to get past that, right? Because my intentions are in the right place. Like I want to help grow people. I want to help. You know, if there's one nugget or one thing I put down on the table that you pick up, then like, you know what, I can live with that. But like it doesn't come out perfect. It doesn't come out polished. Kudos to the elite dudes like Sheets and Jaeger and those dudes, because like those dudes are rock stars. I'm not a rock star. I'm just like this Italian kid from a small town in San Francisco that's just trying to make a difference in the world with dudes. And I've been lucky enough to be around guys because I don't even know how I've been lucky. I've been blessed and lucky. But, you know, but for you, Austin, like, man, you're an inspiration, brother. And like you've been through some stuff. You've been through some things. And so like that's a great learning experience, and that's hardened you. And it's like, man, let's go. What's next? Right. Like, and it goes back to is Cade still here? Yeah, it goes back to Cade. Like, you know, doesn't matter, get better. Like, it's just like, those are words, right? And every team and every player and every coach tells you about, hey, these are our values, and they're great. And I think you have to have some sort of foundation. But I'm not about words. I'm about actions. So if the actions don't align to the words, they're empty. They're empty. It means nothing. So we've got to act on it. And our behaviors are what produces the culture and the winning and the success. And so if the behaviors align and match, that's where the consistency starts to form. Right? Long-winded. Sorry, guys.
No, Coach Gianinno, like I gotta say, you know, I'm in a safe space, so you know, I almost did, but man, like I felt myself honestly like welling up right now because I felt you making me better. Like just though that last bit right there was pure and strong, and I appreciate that because guys, do we not understand how often we learn from others more than we actually even learn from ourselves? Like that's why we can listen to these different things, and why we can take in movies and quotes and different stuff that just pierces us, because we just know like, hey, that reflected in me of what I want to bring out into the world. And you guys are in this pure form right now where, look, whatever mistakes that you happen to make, you get to come back to some different stuff of knowing, hey, I know, but I know what's right. I know what's right for me, more importantly, but you're still allowed to make your mistakes. You're still allowed to grow up and understand what you need to figure out, because life experience is going to punch you in the gut. Austin, you got punched a little harder earlier, but that punch is going to now take you into a different situation and say, I've been here. And now even try to punch me, try to knock me down, but I'm ready to get back up. I'm not taking any 10 count on this one. And Coach, I want to kind of lead that into the opportunity for you to talk a little bit about, you know, what you're going to be having going on at the ABCA this coming January for ourselves, and kind of just put it out there what you got going on, please, if you can share that, Coach.
Yeah, I'll before I jump into that, I just wanted to just because I'm a process oriented person, and I talked about know, do, own, right, from Ken Revisa, but take it a step further or align it right next to it side by side. And it's another self-reflective process, and players or coaches. And I think we're all in these levels at certain times. But ask yourself, like, man, are you surviving? If you're surviving, you're probably not too accountable to what you need to be doing in that moment at that time in your life. Are you thriving? And thriving is great. It's good, but it's thriving. It's not leading. So it's this idea of, and you take your players like from freshmen and going into college, right? And I'm sure Austin, he jumped off, but it's, I'm sure there was a level of survival, right? So survive, thrive, lead are three components and levels of, like, at the end of the day, we want our players to end up being able to lead. And the faster they can get to that place, man, when you have 35 dudes leading each other and leading themselves, it's pretty special and pretty synergetic. But yeah, ABCA, it's the national convention. I was lucky enough about, 10 years, 11, 12 years ago, I got to spend a lot of time with Augie Garrido. We had some close connections. You all know who Augie is, right? I don't need to. Yeah. So unbelievable man, mentor, friend. I went and watched him in action at Texas for about 7-8 years in a row, and just wanted to sort of study why was he so successful, and why was he able to win a national championship in 4 different decades? Like that's some evolution of teaching. That's some adaptability. That's special. And then he built a program with nothing, and was successsul, and went to a program with everything, all resources, and was successful. So just wanted to sort of study that. And I got more than I ever would have thought out of that experience. And so we spent a lot of time together. I encouraged him to speak, and he what am I going to speak about? And Kirk talked about it earlier, right? He talked, if you get a chance to watch his video from the ABCA in Indianapolis, I think it was in 2017 or 18, right before he passed away. The title was, is it a game of failure or is it a game of opportunity? And he just had this philosophical mind. It was a contagious energy, a contagious spirit. His messages and principles are special. And I promised him that I would do whatever I could to continue to spread his spirit, spread his message. And so I'd been going to the ABCA for many years, and I always went to the hot stove, the pitching hot stove, the hitting hot stove, etc. And so finally I was like, why is there no like leadership, team building, team development, culture development, environment development, hot stove? And so I was like, we got to change that. Like Augie, this is what Augie lived for. This is like where his messages and philosophies are embedded. And so I reached out to Tim Corbin and said, Tim, could you back me on this? And, I get like, the hitting hot stove and the pitching hot stove is going to be off the charts, right? You're going to get everybody there. I mean, we're going to talk about spin rate. We're going to talk about launch angle, all of it, right? All the day. Like, what are we doing to build young men? What are we doing for the human element of the game? Like, how are we putting the cart before the horse? Like, that's just my opinion. Like, I got no data. That's just my opinion. Like, we're dealing with personalities and human heartbeats. Like, we got to find a way to touch the heart, and that's what Augie did. Like, those dudes' hearts were touched. And once those things were touched, the minds were touched, and those minds then turned on, and then they bought in, because that dude was a motivator and an inspirer, and he was contagious with his messages and his teachings. And so I just said, Tim, could you back it? And so last couple of years, we started this leadership hot stove, and they did it, and it's gained some momentum. And I really would, if you get a chance to go if you're going to be in Chicago, please come if you can. We're going to be, I got Nate Trotsky. I got a panel of speakers this year. I got Lauren Johnson, Nate Trotsky, and Dr. Barry Davis out of Rider University, who, are brilliant minds. And I'm gonna lead them through a Q&A and then listen and then ask questions from you. We want to hear from you guys, and just try to make it a valuable experience so that you can take one or two things back to your program, or as a player, add to your game. And but I think it's a difference maker. I really believe that. And it's all good. I mean, obviously the physical part of the game is obviously a huge need, but like, it's only as good as how our minds operate, and the will versus skill. And the one thing is this: skill is temporary, fellas. It's temporary, but character is infinite. It's for life. So those are just rooted in Augie's messages. And so I sort of stepped outside my comfort zone, saying I would do this, and here I am. And I'm just trying to live that vision that I promised, and not negotiate with myself when I get nervous.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Coach Gianinno. I appreciate you sharing that. And I definitely think that you're absolutely right. And knowing that, hey, yes, there's strength and there's aspects of this, but come on, our brain is a muscle, our mind is a muscle just as much as anything that does need to be worked out. And if that area of us is that much more rooted in purpose and driven, direction, how does it not show direct application into the things that you choose to put yourself into, and help you forge through that fire when you eventually face it? Because we all will go through trials and tribulations. It is not if, it is when. We all will face some stuff that we do not want to face, but it's the preparation that we have for ourselves that hopefully gives us that much more of an opportunity to be able to move forward. And with saying that, Coach, was there anything that you had for yourself that you wanted to say in any kind of closing, or were you fine with wrapping it up for
No,
yourself?
well, I have one thing. I wanted the guys that I could see on video. I just would ask if you did one thing for me. I just want you to sit up in your chair real quick, and I just want you to if you would just join me on this. I want you to reach as high as you can. All right, cool. All right, I want you to relax. I want you to reach a little higher. Man, I saw Cade's and I saw Chris's hands. They were at the tip of the little square in the Zoom. And then when I said reach a little higher, they went beyond the tip of the little Zoom. So I think it's a message for our players, for us in general. Like, hey man, what's our best effort look like? Man, you had more in the tank to give, fellas, the second time. Like, why didn't we give all of that the first time? No disrespect to you guys at all. I'm just having fun. Like, just, no, fellas, like, listen, man, if I can be of any help to you down the road, I would love to talk to you, connect with you. I threw my cell phone in the chat. Please hit me up, hit me on Twitter, DM me, whatever. Like I said, I'm here for you, and really more, you're here for me. So Kirk, thank you so much for what you're doing, brother. You got something special going, and you're gaining some momentum. Keep it rolling. And I'm glad that I was able to be a part of this thing tonight. And I'm really thankful for the guys that hung in there tonight and listened to me. I said I wasn't going to talk at you, but I think I talked at you. So I apologize for that.
No problem at all. I really appreciate it. And, in respect for everybody's time as well, too. I'll go ahead and, hit you with a little bit of a close in, but, guys, I just want to thank you again for taking the time this evening to spend it with us, and most importantly, to invest into yourself. Nothing that you feel is worthwhile will be easy, but at the end of the day, you will get the chance to know that you intentionally built your life. Eddie Pinero, a real good up and coming motivational speaker that I really enjoy, says in a video of his, and I'm sure that it's said by many others, that everybody just sees the finish line. They didn't see the 10,000 hours. They didn't see all the work, the blood, sweat, and tears that went into it. They just see the results. But so keep putting it in, keep challenging yourself to be better, and work your whole life to become an overnight success. Thanks again for the opportunity to share an hour with you guys. Looking forward to seeing you next week. So, with that, let's close it on out. Really appreciate Coach Giannino again, and everybody else that took a couple of minutes to chat. I challenge you guys that want to be on the call next week to go ahead and, hey, soak in the videos that might be recommended. If you get the email, I'll try to do a better job of making sure that I give even the people that aren't in the email chain the opportunity to see some of that stuff. And just like Coach said, I want this to turn into where you're presenting more than I'm doing anything at all, where we get an opportunity to learn from each other, and where you get an opportunity to voice your, personal views and opinions, because, hey, what you have to say might make all the difference to somebody else. And you'll never know until you get a chance to actually say those words. So again, thanks everybody. I appreciate the time. Appreciate you guys staying with us as we went over. Have yourself a great night. Looking forward to next week. Go have a great one. Take care, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving, fellas.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Take care.
Thank y'all very much. I appreciate it.
Hey, absolutely.